What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. The first one from the new studio. Forgive me, it is not fully set up yet. We're going to get a neon sign over my shoulder shortly. I'm still working on putting up the foam panels. And like I said, I'm not fully done yet. So I'm not going to do a full tour or show off yet. And the audio is probably not going to be exactly where I want it. But we are functional, and I needed to get back and start talking New York Jets football with you guys again because I have been so busy for the last month. I'm still really busy, and I haven't put out a video since the pod on Wednesday. It's Sunday. This is probably the longest I've gone without making a video since God knows how long. Years. Many, many years. So I had to come back on and figured that today would be a really good day to go through the New York Jets training camp preview because veterans are reporting for training camp on Tuesday. So why not just go through and take a look at what we should be watching for this training camp and hit everything that you need to know. So like I said, Tuesday is when veterans are reporting to training camp. So we will have practices later this week. Oh, football is back. The long off season is finally over. This felt like a particularly long off season to me, but I don't know, maybe you at home felt differently. But I'm excited for New York Jets football to be back. And honestly, one of the biggest storylines is going to be Hassan Reddick because, well, Hassan Reddick is probably going to hold out. He did not report for OTAs or mandatory minicamp. Neither he or Aaron Rodgers was at mandatory minicamp, both for different reasons. Rodgers was in Egypt on his trip. Hassan Reddick is looking for a new contract. So, do the New York Jets cave and give him that new deal? Or does Hassan Reddick eventually say, you know what, I'm going to show up and play out the final year of my deal? How does this end is going to be a really big story. Now, as a reminder, one of the last big holdouts that you might remember as a Jet fan is Darrelle Revis in 2010. He ended up signing a new contract a week before the NFL season, so he basically missed all of training camp. And if you're concerned, well, he was very good and was an All-Pro that season. He was a Pro Bowler and All-Pro. Was he as dominant as 2009? No, I don't think any corner was ever as dominant as Darrelle Revis' 2009 season, but he was without a doubt still the best corner in football. So can Hassan Reddick miss time in training camp and still be a dominant player? The answer is yes, but in a perfect world, like, I don't want this guy missing practices. Just get him in the building, figure this thing out, Joe Douglas and Hassan Reddick and Reddick's agent, and let's get this thing cooking in the right direction here. Okay, so to the New York Jets' new wide receiver 2, Mike Williams is beginning training camp on the PUP list. This is not really a surprise as he was always going to be on the same timeline or a very similar timeline to what Breece Hall was last year. When we heard Robert Saleh speak during minicamp and OTAs, he made that very clear that they were going to bring him on slowly and then ramp him up. So my expectation would be in mid-August or so, we start to see Mike Williams be brought on slowly. I don't anticipate seeing him in any preseason games. We didn't see Breece Hall in any preseason games, but around mid-August, so in a few weeks, I would imagine that we get him on the football field. He starts practicing and is ready to go, even if not 100% at the start of the year. Will be playing a limited role early on in the season. Another interesting one, sticking with the PUP list, Jordan Travis opens up the season on the PUP list, the New York Jets rookie quarterback that they got out of Florida State this year. He fractured his leg on November 18th, so we'll see when he's ready to go. There hasn't been as much talk about what the timeline for Jordan Travis is. Maybe we see him in preseason games. That kind of feels like a stretch at this point. This was always going to end up being kind of a redshirt year for Jordan Travis. So I guess my thought is just, what do we see of Jordan Travis this summer, if anything? My expectations for him are small right now, and I'm not saying like for his entire career, but for this summer, you know, if you're hoping to see a lot of Jordan Travis, I don't know if that's going to be the case with his injury recovery timeline. All right, for some storylines to watch, I think there's more storylines on the offensive side of the ball. For instance, what the pecking order behind Breece Hall looks like. I mean, Braylon Allen kind of led the charge for the Jets running back room during OTAs and minicamp. We'll see if that remains the same. Izzy Abanikanda was way lower on the depth chart. Kind of just watching if what we saw in OTAs and minicamp translates to the summer and when the pads come on. I would imagine, like, just again, a guess before they even suit up, but I think Braylon Allen probably ends up being RB2 on this team. And then similar for the wide receiver group, what does the depth chart look like after Garrett Wilson? We know Mike Williams is going to be brought on slowly. Is it Malachi Corley or Xavier Gibson in the slot? Who's lining up outside? Is it Alan Lazard with Aaron Rodgers? What kind of bounce back can we see from him? You know, things like that I think you're looking at for the wide receiver room. And I would not be surprised if early on we see more Gibson than Corley. That was the case during minicamp and OTAs. And the Jets usually like to bring on their rookies on the slow side. So if we see more Gibson early on, don't hit the panic button just yet. They usually tend to do that with rookies, but don't be surprised. And even if that trickles into early portions of the season for Malachi Corley and Xavier Gibson. We know what the offensive line starters will look like, but how much do we see Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith practice this summer? I'm sure they're going to be on a limited schedule as both guys are 33 years old and coming off of an injury in the 2023 season. So that means that you're probably going to get a long look at Olu Fashanu. And while he might not be penciled in as a starter on week one or in week one, kind of just seeing where he is in his development, because he's going to be going up against a really good defensive line every single day. So, like, it's sorry to do it. Plug your ears, Connor Hughes, but iron sharpens iron. So we're going to see if Olu's up for the task. And so far, I think the Jets have been excited from what they've seen from Olu, as they should be. He's young. He's talented. I think he's going to be this team's left tackle of the future. And again, we'll kind of see how that ends up playing out, how many games he gets in this year. If I had to guess, I would not be surprised if we see him play probably 8 games, somewhere in that range. I don't think it's fair to expect a full season out of either Tyron Smith or Morgan Moses. On defense, we know what the starters look like. The safety room is potentially a weaker spot, so maybe that's what I'll give you to watch. How does that end up shaking out? My assumption is that it's going to be Chuck Clark and Tony Adams as the starter. Chuck Clark, they brought in last year via trade, unfortunately, during offseason training. Tears his ACL. I think if he's healthy, he's actually going to be an upgrade over Jordan Whitehead, but it depends on his health. I am cautiously optimistic about him. And Tony Adams, I thought, was okay last year. There were times where he looked good, other times where he seemed to struggle a little bit. How does he progress going into his second season as a starter? And then for me, I think Ashton Davis ends up being this team's third safety, which that's kind of the role I see for him anyway. He's a really good special teamer. I thought, developed a lot last year defensively, because he didn't have the thing with Ashton Davis. No one was ever going to question his athleticism. He was a great athlete. I just think he was a little bit further behind because he didn't have a ton of football reps under his belt at Cal and into the NFL. But the more he's played, the better he's got. And I think, you know, a third safety spot for him is like kind of the perfect role for him. On special teams with the new kickoff rules, that's something that I'm going to be watching for. How do they handle that in training camp, but also in the preseason games? That's really going to be the first time that we see what this looks like. And I'm excited because the Jets have a very, very good special teams coordinator in Brant Boyer. He's done a really, really nice job over the years, survived multiple staffs, survived multiple, turnover at the head coaching position. He's just very, very good at his job, and I have a trust for him. So is it going to be, someone like Xavier Gibson returning kicks? You have Tariq Cohen in here. Does he end up winning the job? What does that look like? How do the Jets do with that on both, not only, receiving the kicks, but on their kickoff? Like, what's the plan? And again, I like special teams is going to be a much bigger factor in the NFL this year, which is something I like. I'm excited about that. And lastly, the Jets' first preseason game is August 10th against the Washington Commanders. So make sure to tune in for that. We are a couple weeks away from that, but still, like, August is right around the corner, guys. It's going to come up quickly. And I, for one, am really excited. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments. What are you watching for in training camp? Let me know down below. I am Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new. and I will catch you next time.